Welcome back to the BitGeek Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Avis, and sitting with me to my left is my co-host, the Prince of Pixels,
Nick Wright.
And today we're going to be guessing the 20 unreleased SEGA Genesis Mini games. All right, so Nick, before we get started, I got something I want to say.
Say it.
Get it off your chest. It's just a little bit of housekeeping. I'm not going to admit to anything. I'm not like confessing anything. I was just going to say that the Big Geek Podcast is for anyone that celebrates geeking out in the domain of nerd culture. Topics range from nostalgic and current looks at video games, movies, TV shows, toys, and much, much more. And new episodes can be enjoyed in both audio and video formats. You can look for us on YouTube at youtube.com/BitGeek, as well as podcast services anywhere by searching BitGeek. We appreciate you liking our videos and even subscribing. And if you do subscribe, be sure to click the bell so you're notified as soon as new content is available to you. See, this is just housekeeping stuff.
Okay, that is not what I expected.
If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, or any other service, remember, reviews and word of mouth are vital to the growth and success of our show. So please support your fellow nerds and leave us a review wherever you are, and tell your friends to join the show and get in on the fun, I guess. Also, one other thing. If you'd like to be a guest on the BitGeek Podcast, you can tweet us at BitGeek Podcast, or you can email me at ronavis@gmail.com. And now on with the topic.
I thought you had something.
I know. It felt way more important than it actually was. You know, I'm like, how do I just go into this? Because I wanted to get some of that stuff at the top of the show.
Right.
Whereas in the past, I've sort of tacked it on at the end. It's like, wouldn't it be better if people who are listening for the first time actually kind of had an idea what we were about at the top of the show?
Yeah, try to get that stuff in while they're actually listening.
Right. It's like, what the hell is this video? Because like, if you look at our thumbnails, you know, one week it's us interviewing some guys who like made an arcade, and then the next week we're talking about the history of Ninja Turtles, and the next week we're talking about 10 best, superhero movies or whatever. So it's kind of an eclectic.
We're kind of all over the place.
We're all over the place. But the one thing that they all have in common is it's for nerd culture. It's just for geeking out. That's why we call it Big Geek Podcast.
It's just what we like.
That's just it. It's we do what we like. That's the only reason we do this, because we don't see any money. Like, there aren't any monetary reasons to do it. It's just a fun excuse for us to get together, talk about things we like, and to have some fun. So, as I had said at the top, we are going to be picking the 20 unreleased SEGA Genesis games for their upcoming Mini.
SEGA.
Oh,
man, it needs to boot up with that.
Oh, God, it better. Yeah. It better. That would be a crime if it didn't. So here's what we know about the SEGA Genesis Mini, and we don't know a whole lot. We do know that it's going to be $79.99. You can pre-order it still pretty much everywhere. Have you pre-ordered one yet?
No, not yet. I'm going to get one,
yeah,
but I haven't yet.
I went ahead and pre-ordered like the day that you could, because, unlike the, I don't think it's going to be as scarce or as sought after as the Nintendo ones.
Right.
But I do think there are a lot of old Sega Genesis fans that are clamoring for an actual like good version of one of these minis, and not like a retro, like what's the flashback?
Yeah. I mean, because they've got these machines that play Genesis games already, but
they're kind of crap.
Yeah, they're junk. Anybody that I think has got those knows they're junk. I think the people that kind of say, "Oh, it's already been done," are just the ones that see it on the shelf at Target, but have never actually played one. Well,
it's one of the first ever like mini versions of a console that I can recall ever seeing, even before the NES Mini.
Yeah.
They would show up in places like Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah.
Weird places. Yeah. Like, oh, well, that's kind of cool, I guess. But it was kind of ahead of its time. Some people were buying it.
There's been a few versions of that Genesis one. Like one of them just looked like a little box.
Yeah.
Another one actually looked kind of like the console, which I came really, really close to getting at one point.
And that's the one that it advertises that it's in HD, and
yeah,
I think. And couldn't it play cartridges as well or something?
One of them could. I don't know if it was that one or not. Not sure. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember anymore.
I read some reviews on like Amazon and some other places, and they were real like kind of, it's not so good.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I didn't get one, because it looks like kind of quality. The first one, not so much. The second one, like you said, it looked like a Genesis, and it seemed like they were trying a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But like I said, we know this one's actually being made by SEGA. So they're going to put a little bit more TLC in this one, we hope.
Oh, and you were talking about how you don't think it'd really sell out like the Nintendo one did. My kind of thought on that is like, yeah, I don't think it's going to be like as popular as like the first NES Classic, but also not as a failed attempt like the PlayStation Classic. Hey,
which you can buy for $30 nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of crazy.
I was at Walmart today, and they were just like full of them. They had so many.
What a piece of crap that was. What a letdown. And then and similar to the PlayStation Classic, they kind of gave us just a taste of what the library was going to be, and you're like, oh God, here we go again. Same as Sony. Are they just going to kind of phone it in? But then the list looked okay. And then the second wave of games, because they were like, we're gonna release 10 at a time over a certain period of time. The thing comes out on September 18th. So they're just sort of like, to keep excitement high, they're releasing 10 at a time. And I'm liking what I'm seeing a lot. Yeah. Like a lot. It feels more like what Nintendo is doing. They're paying attention. Like they understand what the fans want to see. And Sega fans are fiercely loyal. Like they're still buying their game. Like if old Sega fans are still buying these games like Yakuza and stuff and keeping Sega alive. Like the hardware stuff is gone and forgotten to most, except people like us. But it's going to come with 2 controllers with the original 3-button layout, which is cool. I like that they're now. I don't know how long the cords are going to be, because that's always been an issue, of course, with Nintendo. The Sony ones aren't bad.
I wasn't thinking about. I'll have to look at my list of games whether I took into account 3 buttons over 6 buttons.
I mean, almost all of them except for Street Fighter were like, oh.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to it. I need a tasty beverage there. But I thought it was interesting that because it's going to be a regional thing. There's going to be the Mega Drive, like with the Nintendo ones. There's going to be the Mega Drive version in Europe and Japan. And in Japan, they're actually going to get 1 6-button layout controller. So.
I didn't know that. That's cool. So
yeah, it's on the Japanese website.
Are they just getting 1 controller just all together?
They're getting
like
1 controller.
1 3-button, 1 6-button. That'd be weird.
Like no matter which you get, you're getting 6 buttons basically.
So we're getting 2 controllers.
We're getting 2, but it's the 3-button layout.
And they're just getting 1 controller.
With the 6 buttons.
That's weird.
I know. That's strange, but there must be certain Japanese games that maybe needed more it required more. I don't know, like there were more 6-button layout games, perhaps. I'm not sure. We don't have any idea how big the hard drive on this thing is going to be, but it is actually going to have 40 games on it, which is more than any of the NES games ever did.
But they're small. I mean, it's not like the PlayStation Classic where the games were larger. I mean,
I think they are smaller than Super Nintendo, but not by a tremendous amount. I don't think, but. I'm hoping that it'll be at least comparable to what you'd get on an NES or an SNES Classic, so we can mod this thing and get out there and put whatever games you want on it. I hope. The mod scene for the Sega Genesis has been real quiet versus, the NES was hopping, and then when the PlayStation Classic was announced, it was hopping big time. There's a Genesis one too, but it's real quiet.
Yeah.
So, it's also going to be HDMI, but we don't know if it's going to be just like 720 or 1080. My hunch is it'll be 720, just like the NES and the Super Nintendo. Each game is going to have up to 4 suspend points, which is cool. You can, you can just pick up. I love the suspend points, especially if you're trying to beat a game that was too hard to beat originally.
Yeah.
Get to a point, save, then you can always go back to it if you just get killed. That might help me on games like Castlevania Bloodline or something, tough games. Or other games, if we get it, we don't get it, we'll get to that. I could see there being one game if it does come out. That's the spin point would be appreciated. So that's like all of the hardware related stuff that we know. Now, as far as the games go, we'll go ahead and list the 20 games that we actually know are going to be coming out for it. The original 10 was Echo the Dolphin. Pretty good game. Castlevania Bloodlines.
Very, very Sega-y Echo.
Very Sega, yeah. Echo he's right up there with Sonic, kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, Castlevania Bloodlines, which is, I'm looking forward to that a lot because I haven't played it. And I don't know if it's coming out for that, like on NES or the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. They're coming out with those. Konami's releasing these packs, and there's like a Castlevania, Contra, and arcades. I'm not sure if the Bloodlines is on the one or not. I think it is, but I'm not sure.
I haven't paid attention. I don't know.
So that'll be fun to play for the first time. Space Harrier 2, which falls in line with the classic arcade releases that they would do. Shining Force, that makes sense. That's so distinctly Sega. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Never played it.
Gotta have your puzzle game.
Yeah, gotta have your puzzle game, right. Toe Jam and Earl, definitively Sega. I'm very happy that they put that on there and didn't just kind of like tease it to the end. It's a game that doesn't hold up at all, but I just happy to see it, Then you got Comic Zone. That's a game that's going to really
Sega.
Very Sega, very iconic Sega game, and also just like notoriously evil in its difficulty.
Yeah.
So that I think some people might beat Comic Zone for the first time because I think you only get like one life or something crazy. It's really hard.
I never really played it.
I did. I had to try it because of the way like he draws him when he comes in. You go to panel. I mean, it's such a cool concept.
Yeah, like I played like a demo. Like I think it was at Target or something back in the day or something. I don't know, but I remember like seeing the little drawing.
So cool.
And thinking it was really cool, and like you're kind of running around. It looks like a comic strip.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you'll climb down panels. Like you want to go to a level down, he'll climb down.
Yeah, like aside from like seeing like a level, I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, it's like got a lot of cheap hits, and you only get like one life. I think maybe you get 3, but can you imagine like playing one of those hard ass games where you die like at the end of the game, you gotta go right back to the beginning? No bueno.
Yeah,
I don't think so. Altered Beast, classic was the original pack-in game for the Sega Genesis. That makes a lot of sense. It's still kind of fun to play, and all the fun, horrible MIDI sound.
Yeah, I would have been very surprised if Altered Beast wasn't on this thing.
It was not going to happen. Gunstar Heroes, a lot of people's favorite game for the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
And this is another one that I'm probably going to actually jump into for the first time. I've never played it. I don't know if it's just me being stubborn or what, but like I've just never played it.
I tried it out at one point just because I heard this is like everybody's favorite Genesis game.
Great reputation.
But I mean, honestly, I never really played it either, other than just trying it out because I've heard about it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give that one a shot, I think. And of course, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Which became their mascot, and they're pushing force, and it was their everything. So not a bad start.
Yeah. So already, there's like quite a few like where you're just already thinking like, oh yeah, I mean, I couldn't even imagine a Genesis Mini without some of these games.
Yeah.
Which is like exactly what happened to the PlayStation. It's like, you had these games where you thought, oh, these will
Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy VII were there, and Ridge Racer was there, and Tekken was there. So you're like, okay.
You're like, oh, Crash Bandicoot for sure. And
oh my God. Oh man, I went all in on Crash. As we know from the last episode, we know the PlayStation Classic, I didn't do very good.
Yeah, so already we're looking a little.
We're getting some mascot love.
Yeah.
All right, so then the second wave came out, and then they included. Now here's where things got really interesting for me, and I was trying to like in my mind think of the next 30. There were all kinds of like little rules in my head. I had all these kind of preconceived notions of why a game would or wouldn't be on the list. Not because it's not a great game, it's because there could be some sort of legal technicality keeping it off. But these two games right here really kind of started to change my mind. Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, which is a classic Sega Genesis game.
Very classic Sega Genesis, but yeah, I hear you.
But it's Mickey Mouse. It's Disney. World of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. I actually have that one, and that's great. I love that one. So it's like, ooh, wow, okay. Starting to change my mind a little bit how I think they're going to go. Then you got Thunder Force 3, which is fun. Super Fantasy Zone. Okay. Fantasy Zone is, I think that's been on a lot of stuff, really. But
yeah,
I could kind of see it being like something like, oh, it's okay, whatever. Shinobi 3.
Yeah.
You got your Shinobi game. Boom.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Sega.
Sure. I couldn't see one Genesis Mini without a Shinobi.
Yeah.
And so, Shinobi
Makes
3.
sense.
Yeah.
Streets of Rage 2.
Same with that.
Yeah. My favorite Streets of Rage game.
Yeah.
Just classic music, Blaze. It's, oh my God, I played that and beat it so many times. And I love the excellent 3DS version too, that you can buy from their eShop on the Nintendo's eShop. Earthworm Jim.
Which arguably was better than the Super Nintendo version.
I really think it was.
One of the very few games where like you've got the exact same game and it was better on the Genesis, in my opinion.
And me too. I think so too. And I think most people share that same opinion. I mean, even if you played it on Super Nintendo and you didn't have a Genesis, you kind of have to like tip your cap because it was it was easily available to play in a lot of places. So even if you didn't have a Genesis, you either had a friend that had it or you could have played a demo somewhere. So that is just one of the all-time classic Genesis games. But I wasn't sure if it would be there. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was, Shiny?
Shiny, yeah. And it's not a Sega-owned property.
Right.
So, but they recognized that it was a really popular game, and they included it. So, to me, I mean, you could stop right here, and it's miles ahead of Sony.
Oh, absolutely.
Just miles ahead of Sony. But there are more. You got Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which is maybe arguably their most popular game ever.
Yeah. Sonic 2, I think is my favorite. A
monumentally important game right there. And then, well, this one really surprised me too. Contra Hardcore. Or is it Hardcores? Hardcorps? I have no idea. Now, this is a weird, because it's got like the different perspective. Like there's a top-down kind of chunky perspective. Like I never really played it because once Super C and then the Super Contra 3 or whatever for Super Nintendo, I feel like the Contra series started getting a little too experimental for me and not that much fun. Yeah. There was this Sega version that a lot of people like.
Yeah, I kind of remember like seeing there was a Contra on Genesis. And, I mean, to be fair, I didn't really have a Genesis, so this is why I didn't really try some of these games out. Usually when I did play a game, it was because it was on the demo at Toys R Us or KB or whatever.
Right.
So,
or if you came over to my house or something.
Right. And, and I played so many, just like Sonic the Hedgehog, played so much Sonic Hedgehog just because I went to your house.
Service merchandise. Remember that place?
Yeah, Altered Beast. Played me some Altered Beast at Service Merchandise.
I played a lot of games. Sonic Spinball, I played it Service Merchandise. Remember Service Merchandise, people? It was just like a catalog that comes to life.
But like, I just remember seeing like that Contra game on Genesis and just kind of thinking like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. Like, what's this different Contra game on Genesis? But I guess never really trying it out just because I didn't have a Genesis.
Right, and I didn't think it looked as good as the Contra 3. Right. So I was like, why bother? The Contra 3 was just like a supremely just...
It was like, what is this? Like the watered down
Contra 3?
But not knowing.
And honestly, too, like I remember the box art looking kind of generic or something. It didn't have like a real compelling box art. Like it didn't look Contra-like.
Yeah, so I just kind of had that feeling. Yeah, like it was like, well... what is this, like would-be Contra, or,
They just paid for the name, but
I guess like it's supposed to be really good, though. It's
supposed to be really good, and I'm looking forward to playing it. I've watched a few Let's Plays of people, like, just enjoying the hell out of it, playing it, and it has, they achieved that Contra spirit. It might be the last Contra game, really, that ever came out that kind of did that. And I think there was, like, some good Game Boy Contra games, too, that maybe came out after this, around the same time. And then here's the one game that kind of, like, left me wondering, like, what? It's called Landstalker.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
And I was like, well, let me pull up the box art. Maybe that'll jog my memory. As a lot of times that'll be the case. And, even then, like, I couldn't really make heads or tails. Like, what kind of game is this even? And, like, I don't know. Is it like an RPG maybe? I'm not really sure.
Couldn't tell you.
But it didn't ring a bell. But I we a little bit of research. It has its fans. It's got its fans. So it's not just some crappy thing they threw out there with no thought. So that brings us to now. We got 20 more games to look forward to, and there's still a whole lot more great Genesis games to pick from. So knowing what we know now, we've had a little bit of time to pivot and rethink our lists. I thought it would be fun. Like, what we'll actually do is we'll alternate back and forth. We'll get 10 apiece. And, like, if you pick one of mine and yours, like, we've got some additionals to fall back on. So we should be able to get 20 out.
Okay.
And, like, we'll try and make our case for each pick. And, at the end of the show and after it comes out, we can kind of go back to the list and see how close we were. Because I enjoyed that with the Sony PlayStation, even though I did horribly. It's fun to do that. It's fun to keep score and see who really knows what. And I was a Sega kid, so like I have to do well here. Like I feel pressure. Like I got to do well on this. I can't lose to the guy who didn't have a Sega Genesis. That's just not proper.
Fun fact: my first Genesis was, well, actually I don't even know, either the CDX or the Nomad.
I never saw your CDX, but that Nomad came with you a lot. Like
I actually still have the CDX.
Yeah.
The Nomad is no more.
I'm pretty sure you had them like around the same time. So it is kind of hard to figure out like which one you had first.
I want to say the CDX, I think.
That Nomad was like the last thing that came out, really, in the Genesis life cycle.
I found it like on sale at like Target or something. I don't know.
Somebody borrowed it. You never got it back.
I forget. Yeah, we won't go there
again. All right, Nick. I want to let you go first, and you tell me what you think number 21 is going to be, and I'm going to write it down.
Outstanding.
Okay.
I say 21's going to be this classic Sega arcade game.
Mm-hmm.
Bonanza Brothers.
I think it will too. That was also on my list. And here's why I think it probably will. You know how like there have been several Sega classic games?
I love Bonanza Brothers.
I
love that
smooth
style.
Yeah.
They're just shapes.
Yeah, it was it had that rendered 3D graphics, like rendered look to it. It was a very simple, like it was like a throwback game. Mm-hmm. It felt like an old arcade throwback game, like elevator action, bright colors they could do, and made a good game out of it. But everybody was blown away by the animations, and there was a lot of attention paid to the fact that they were working with Disney animators.
And that's another one I think that, to be fair, the Super Nintendo version is a completely different game.
Yeah.
But I think the Genesis version's better. I mean, the Super Nintendo one is good for what it is, but
it is actually good.
It's a good game, yeah. But I
don't think it animates quite as well, though.
Yeah, and it does have nice animation, but it just doesn't have that same look as the Genesis one. I mean, the Genesis one just looks like the cartoon.
It really does. And that was sort of a theme I felt like going forward with this Genesis. Like all those Disney ones, like Lion King and whatever, you name it. I feel like they were always better on the Genesis, just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But Aladdin is your Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It is your it's whatever. It's your Donkey Kong Country. It's like the acclaimed game, and everyone agrees it's great. And it's a fun property because like not all property games are good, like licensed games from intellectual properties.
Now, I mean, I'll be honest, I never got very far in it. Like all I did was always just play that first board over.
The first board's all you need. Yeah,
I'm
in the market,
playing it at Toys R Us or whatever all the time.
Yeah, that like music kicks in. I don't know if I've beaten it either, but I mean, we've established many times previously, like I don't beat a lot of games. Like I'll just like a game, and that doesn't, just because I haven't beaten it. I mean, it seems kind of weird to say that. Like, if you love the game so much, why don't you keep playing it until you beat it? I get bored, I guess. I get distracted with other stuff easily, and I just don't beat as many games as. So, like, if I beat a game It's special. It really is. It's not a badge of honor. It's just unique and special for me. Like, I'll tell you, like, hey, I beat this game, Nick. And you're like, yeah, big deal, whatever.
Or you just lie about it, like Mega Man 2.
Yeah, I was busted on that. Yeah, for sure. You just figured it out. I don't even know if I owned up to it until much later, even, but you just sort of figured it out.
No, it was like you had. I don't even remember what even brought it up that you had said you beat it, but you said you beat Mega Man 2. Yeah. And we were at...
I was bragging.
You were bragging.
I was just bragging.
And we were at a friend's house for like a sleepover. It was like 3 or 4 of us had like this sleepover, and we either rented or brought over Mega Man 2 or something or other. And anyway, I'm playing it.
Well, no, we played it at the sleepover. And I remember we're playing you two fell asleep. Yeah.
No, and I got to the end. Like I'd never beat it before, but I beat like the Wily machine and got to like where it's like in that cave where it's like dripping acid and stuff. Yeah. And you start like freaking out like,
that's right.
Oh, this is awesome. and I'm like looking at you like, well, you've beat it before, so you've seen it.
Right? Isn't it awesome? I put the inflection on the wrong word.
You're just getting like so excited. And, like,
you can do it,
I
Nick.
get to like Wily and he turns into an alien and you're just like freaking out. It's so amazing. And I'm just like, dude, you lied.
I couldn't deny it. All right, you got me.
You told me you beat it. You haven't beat it, liar.
I've owned up to all that shit now. Okay, it's past me.
Liar.
All right, so that's 22, Nick. What do you have for 23?
All right, let's stay in the same vein, cartoony wise.
Okay.
And TAZ-MANIA.
Come to Tasmania. Yeah, come to Tasmania.
Where the sky is always yellow and the rain always shines. Come to Tasmania.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and I actually just said blah 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 yakety schmackety.
Blah 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 yakety schmackety.
But I didn't say it like the character. I just said blah 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 yakety schmackety. And he paused and he goes, Tasmania? I was like, you are so right, dude. Well done, sir. But yeah, from the Warner Brothers, afternoon
now,
on Fox.
I am concerned. I mean, kind of like you said about. Well, I mean, but we already know we're getting some Disney stuff, but this isn't Disney. But so there's that. If
it's a licensing deal.
I don't know, but it's so classic Genesis that
there's a hype in there.
TAZ-MANIA. Yeah. I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful too. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, when you kind of move around as the like tornado kind of, like Hallie does.
If it's not on there, I'm not super surprised, but
I would have said no way. But after seeing the two Disney games on there already, why not Warner Brothers?
The animation isn't like. Well, let's be honest. I mean, the game's hard to play.
It's a little floaty.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's not that great, but it looks good.
We're like backing up, like, I don't know, man. Maybe I want to put this game on there.
Yeah, because it looks so good. I have tried to play it a bit, and it's hard to play, but it looks so great. I mean, I still it holds a place in my heart. I
don't know why, but like when I think of TAZ-MANIA, I associate it with the Super Scope for Super Nintendo because I had rented. Those two things.
I don't know why either.
That's it. I'm just saying, like, they were out around the same time, and I was at a video store, and I rented TAZ-MANIA, and I rented. They actually were renting the Super Scope along with whatever game it came along with. So I remember playing them both around the same time.
I like the animation.
There's not a lot to say about it, right? It's just we like the character because Warner Brothers was big in the 90s.
I like when he eats stuff. He like shoves it down his mouth,
just like in the cartoons. Yeah.
But yeah, it's another one that the Super Nintendo version is a completely different game. Yeah. It's like a racing game.
We've mentioned in the past how like Nintendo in general had like that whole can't be the exact same game. You had if you're gonna, they had people by such a death grip. If you wanted to publish with their systems, you wanted to publish that same property on another system, they had to be two different games.
I guess TAZ-MANIA is like the one that I would play for like 30 seconds and then move on to something else. But
Totally. This looks cool. I'm having fun, zipping around as Taz. I eat a few things. I make the and then you're just kind of done.
Yeah. So I guess. So
a classic game may be a bit overselling it, maybe, but when you said it, I immediately pictured the box and the gameplay and then the colorful graphics.
I do think it is a classic. It just maybe doesn't hold up that well.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So anyway, yeah, it's I wouldn't be surprised if it's not on there, but I'm saying it.
Okay, moving on to the next game. Now, this is a game that I wasn't sure about, but now I'm feeling a little more confident in it, and that's the Spider-Man versus Kingpin game.
I think that's a good choice. Who knows if we'll see Marvel games or not? I don't know, but
I feel like Marvel's a little more liberal with their licensing. Like I think they'll just put their stuff on anything, unlike a Disney or a.
Since you're saying this, I'm just going to go ahead and say one that this doesn't really count, but I came really, really close to putting the and maybe you will, so maybe I shouldn't say this, but that X-Men Clone Wars, X-Men 2 Clone Wars.
Yeah, that's a pretty.
That was classic.
That was a pretty popular game.
Yeah,
and it looked really good too. But so did Spider-Man versus Kingpin. And I feel like that's it was like an early Sega classic. Back in the days when Sega was their whole thing seemed to be their whole thing was twofold. It was bringing their arcade ports home, doing a pretty good job doing the ports because that's where their bread and butter was. But they would also spend a lot of money and a lot of effort to license things. Like they really, Nintendo was off creating their own properties, just being creative. They didn't really like King Griffey Jr. is like the only time I really ever remember them like splurging on a name. But Sega Genesis, on the other hand, they would come out and they'd be like Tommy Lasorda's baseball, Joe Montana's football, Buster Douglas boxing, Spider-Man. We got Spider-Man, and that was one of those advertisements that I remember seeing a lot. But it was fun, it was fun to like swing around with the web, and the mechanics were pretty fun.
And it was one of the first bosses like Doc Ock.
I want to say it was like Doc Ock, or it may have been like the Lizard Man or something.
Because I've got this vision in my head of Doc Ock, and he just, his arm, the octopus, like the robotic arms, tentacles were, just real big and just took up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And just being like really impressed, with like a Sega Genesis game that, that the sprites weren't just all like real tiny things, and that he just was taking up all this room.
Yeah, you're right. It's like in the time of the NES was still out. The Super Nintendo I don't think was out yet, so we were wowed by the Genesis graphics. And on NES, everything was more compressed, and you kind of had to like use your imagination a bit more. But now, like you say, like you got more real estate, bigger sprites, and now you don't have to imagine so hard.
Yeah,
you have Doc Ock right there in front of you. You're like, that is Doc Ock.
Yeah, so I've got that vision in my head, and just thinking that's like my fond memory of like that game.
Yeah. Okay, so that's my 24. What do you want to have for 25?
Oh, I'm gonna say Ghostbusters.
What? All right, we're gonna put it down here.
I think that is classic Sega Genesis.
Oh man,
really?
Yeah. No, I'm not, and I'm not gonna dispute it. Like unlike the PlayStation Classic, I don't think it's more fun to like.
It's a way better game than like the NES Ghostbusters that you like can't even figure out how to play.
Yeah,
I mean it's an actual side scroller. Is the NES Ghostbusters the one where like when you get to the apartment building, like there's weird kind of patterns you got to know, and like which doors you got to go in and out of, and it's like really hard to know. Like it's just one of those, like you got to read how to beat it almost instead of just figuring it out naturally. Well, you do have to kind of like read how to beat it. Like the Atari 2600 and the NES are like the same game, just NES had slightly better graphics. Yeah. Like it was even bad looking on NES.
Jesus. I mean, I loved seeing that black gridded box with the Ghostbusters logo. Like, it's beautiful in that respect.
Yeah.
I think I played the Mega. I almost said the Master System. I don't think I owned it, but I think I played it, or I owned it and took it back because it was just so bad.
Oh yeah.
But so remind me then, how does the Genesis Ghostbusters game play?
Well, they're all kind of like super deformed, kind of like chibi style, like real cute, big head kind of looking.
Oh, that's
kind of caricatures.
Oh my God, you are so right. That was a major game for them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, see, you're making fun of me.
No, well, I mean, I still don't think it's considered a classic game nowadays. But when it was coming out, it was a. Again, it's Sega doing like what they do. They get a licensed property.
It was a kind of a side scroller, shoot, jump around,
and the graphics were really good for its time.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it in magazines and going like, that looks like a really fun game. And yeah, this had to be one of the first Genesis games because I didn't have a Genesis when I saw it at the time. So maybe that's why it didn't immediately click in my head. I was thinking about that NES game and just like,
oh, that's awful.
Oh yeah, it's so good. Like, what's going on? I'm just like driving around in Ecto-1. Like, I don't even know what's happening.
Yeah, like I tried to play it. Like, I mean, not long ago, I tried to play it, and I just could not figure it out.
Man, I hope you're right and Ghostbusters is on there. I don't think it'll be on there, but I really hope it is.
I'll be honest, I don't think it will be either. But
this is like just wishful thinking, maybe.
It's my wish list. Oh, God. Yeah, I didn't say it like here, but I told you earlier that my list is kind of a hybrid of what I actually think would be, but my own personal wish list also. Yeah. So
because it's more fun.
That's part of my personal wish list. So
yeah, well, maybe we won't grade these after all because this is our hopeful list. I mean, it might. You never know. It might. There's 40 games they got to fill, right?
I think it's a classic.
I agree that it's important to the early lineup of Genesis games. But I think once you consider the whole entire collection, it's not important at all.
I'm hung up on the past.
Me too. Me too. I mean, we're doing a nostalgia-themed podcast after all. So, Ghostbusters is a beautiful pick. But
all right, I said it.
Don't think it's going to happen. All right, next one for me, I'm going to say Columns.
Oh, man. You took my... For sure.
That's what you get for screwing around with Ghostbusters. I'm going to sneak in and get the sure thing. No, but Columns was their Tetris. And it's, when they put their Game Gear out, that's what they would include. And usually it was Columns. Yeah. But they had a Genesis version. And, Columns is another one of those games that almost always pops up on those collections that you see on, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, whatever. Columns almost always seems to be on the list of games. So, it's a puzzle game. It's, similar more. I think it's probably more similar to a Dr. Mario than it is a Tetris game.
Yeah. They've already announced the Dr. Robotnik puzzle game, which surprises me.
Very surprising.
To be honest.
Very surprising.
But Columns I expect to see.
There's a half a dozen other Sonic games I would expect to see on there before that. But, but it does fit the puzzle genre. I think we're going to get at least one more puzzle game with Columns. And, it's a real basic game, with the gems and you match the colors. Oh,
man, that kind of thing is all over mobile phones now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It kind of reminds me almost like the Puyo Puyo kind of style, gems or whatever. I was not a huge fan of it, to be honest. But I recognize it as a very traditional Genesis game. With
my CDX, I got like a CD with had like Echo the Dolphin, Columns. Mm-hmm. It's like 4 games, I think. I forget what all was there. So I played it a little bit just because of that.
Yeah.
But
play it for a few minutes. It's just like any game like that should be. You're not going to sit and binge play it for hours and hours, unless Tetris is the exception because it was like all there was, and you just were amazed at this game. Like, oh God, Tetris came out of nowhere.
Oh man, yeah, Tetris is you would get a Game Boy just for Tetris.
Oh yeah, a lot of people bought Game Boys just for Tetris, no doubt. But Columns, it's a simple puzzle game, but Genesis, Sega, they gave it a lot of love, and they continue giving it a lot of love. So I just expect it to be on the Mini. So, what's your next game?
All right. So, okay, since you said the Columns, I'm going to take VECTORMAN.
Okay.
I think VECTORMAN is for sure.
I think that's a no-brainer.
I think for sure it's going to be on there.
VECTORMAN to me was their Sega's attempt to answer Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
Because I think Star Fox and Donkey Kong Country turned that tide, along with Street Fighter, when Sega Genesis had finally caught up with him and maybe surpassed him a little bit. That Donkey Kong game just was a killer. So when VECTORMAN came out, Genesis couldn't do what the Super Nintendo could, but they did a pretty good job coming close with those graphics. And it was just like a bunch of little Great Prairie.
I might have had it twice, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I think I bought it on Super Nintendo, and then I think at some point I had it on 3DO, because I had to get something on the 3DO, right?
Yeah.
Other than Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Please help me justify this purchase. What was that Naughty Dog game? Way of the Warrior.
Yeah, so I had I had Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Gex that came with
that was a fun game.
Samurai Showdown.
Gex was legit.
Way of the Warrior. Balls.
Yeah, because I like that. Balls. But VECTORMAN was just balls, but it was a much prettier game. And
the animation was smooth.
Yeah. And I remember playing that pretty far into the game. I didn't beat it, obviously, but I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it fine. I didn't really get into it. I mean, they tried to push it.
Oh, they pushed it.
This was like the next big thing.
Big time. And that was their last gasp, too.
And I don't think it was the next big thing, but...
No, it
was fine. It was good.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was, but I think it was their attempt. That was what they were hoping.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I feel like it's the last Genesis game that I really ever played, VECTORMAN. So
I'd probably agree with that. Yeah.
There was a VECTORMAN 2, I know, and it probably was just slightly bit better, you would assume, but
by the time 2 came out, I was like, you fooled me with VECTORMAN 1.
Fool me once,
I'm
I'll
sure
play Donkey Kong Country 2.
But
Thank you very much.
Yeah, by the time 2 came out, I didn't care.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next. This is a game that... Okay, so you took a chance on a game. I should take a chance on a game,
Yeah,
too.
come on.
Okay. This is kind of a classic Genesis game, really. But I'll say why I don't think it probably why it won't be on there, but I hope it is. Road Rash 2.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Road Rash was another one of those early Genesis games that a lot of people played. It's floaty and horrible, but it had a really fun gimmick where you're just you're racing on your motorcycle, and you, instead of just racing your opponent, you were racing your opponent, but you could kick and chain people, knock them off their bikes, and it's just so satisfying. It's like, picture the chains in Double Dragon 2, but you're riding a motorcycle as you're doing it. So it's pretty amazing, and I played that a bunch. And the other cool thing about it was to the old graphics at any time, and one of them, I think the first one that came out.
Yeah, at least the first one. The second one, I haven't even tried. I don't know if you can or not.
I haven't tried either. I feel like they were advertising. They were kind of touting that a bit in the other game. So like the other one maybe doesn't do it. But at any point in that game, you're seeing all these beautifully hand-drawn graphics. You could switch it. And
it's really neat.
It's really cool. And I don't think they're the first game to do that. I feel like there's been other games that do it.
It looks like garbage. Oh, it looks
does.
good.
It looks like garbage. Let's please go back. It's like, oh, that looks cool. I wonder how they... They didn't do a very good job back then. But, you're right. I think Wonder Boy is a very Sega game. And I think it goes back to the Master System. And, with games like Alex Kidd, they're just very distinctly Sega games. One of the early mascots, really.
Yeah.
Before Sonic was, I feel like Wonder Boy and your Alex Kidd. They're different games. I'm kind of mixing them together. But.
Well, it's kind of like PlayStation. We could never decide, is Spyro the mascot? Is Crash the mascot? They had so many. Parappa the Rapper. There's so many.
Yeah, they had a lot. They definitely that was the tail end of the mascot days. But I would be okay with Wonder Boy in Monster World. And, I think it's a game they for sure could easily and cheaply put on the system. So if there's a budget of any kind, I don't know how that works exactly. They could pad it a little bit with some well-known and accepted Sega properties like Wonder Boy. So it's a good pick. I'm okay with that.
I'm glad that you approve.
I will allow it.
Make fun of Ghostbusters.
All right, so we're going into 30 now. So now I got to start being selective, I think. So, okay, this is a very, very Sega Genesis title. One of the first Sega Genesis games that I thought looked really, really good and was jealous that I couldn't play it. And it was one of the games that I was like anxious to go and rent and play when I finally had a Genesis, and that is Strider.
You know, I thought about
and
Strider.
That's a Capcom game, by the way.
It is a Capcom game, and I thought about Strider, and yes, it was on the Genesis, but I went against it just because it doesn't feel like a Sega Genesis game to me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like an arcade game. I mean, I don't...
But that was Sega Genesis, though.
I can't really justify it. It was on the Genesis, so I can't justify my feelings. But that's how I feel.
I feel like it was, and wasn't it an arcade? It was an arcade game, yeah. I remember like in early EGMs, this was an early game. I remember them like being really excited about, like the Strider game for Genesis. You know, especially that first board. You know, you're like on the outside, kind of like a Mega Man X kind of like situation where you're just kind of blown away right away just by the...
I think the difference why I have this feeling with Strider is because a lot of the games on the list are arcade games, but they're Sega's arcade games. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the first like other company like Capcom arcade game.
But they chose Sega, you know. It was like a Sega exclusive. Like now, there was a Strider game for the NES, I think, but it was terrible. I don't think it played anything like the arcade or the Genesis version.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think it was like Strider in name only, and it was a Capcom game. But
so I don't know. You know, maybe it'll be on there.
I feel pretty strongly about it, and it's a game that doesn't hold up terrific like nowadays. But it holds up as well as like a TAZ-MANIA does.
I mean, I play the arcade version every now and then.
Yeah, it's very stylish.
Yeah, I like it.
I like the way you like can grip and hang on and you like move around. Like, you know, it's a lot of fun. So anyway, that's my next pick. Nick, what about you for number 31?
Here's another one I'd very much like to see. Let's see, we do already have Konami games, don't we?
Contra, we got
Contra's
Contra.
Konami.
Yep, and Castlevania.
So okay, yeah, and Castlevania. So okay, I'm gonna add a Konami game.
Let's do it.
TMNT, the HYPERSTONE Heist.
I hope you're right.
I would very much like to see that on there.
I hope you're right.
You know, it's very much like Turtles in Time. Pretty much uses the assets from Turtles in Time, but kind of, you know, forms like a new kind of story, new game with those assets.
Sega, atone for Nintendo's egregious mistake by excluding Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo Classic. Here's your chance. Prove you're better than Nintendo.
Yeah.
Put that game on here. I would love that a lot.
That'd be great.
But and with what we know now, and we got a couple of Konami games on there that I didn't even think about that. Why not have a third Konami game? And you know, one of Konami's like big blockbuster titles was always like the Turtle games, but the Turtle games get like no love anymore. They really don't.
I don't know why.
They were great games. I mean, I understand that. Well, I don't even understand that they're not popular anymore because the Turtles are as popular as ever. I mean, they're still like on all the time in different incarnations. So.
Have you seen the new show? I mean, I've only seen what it looks like, and I just can't get past that.
I can't either.
I've never seen.
I hate the way they look.
Yeah,
Nickelodeon was really hitting home runs for a while, I think.
I just think the new one looks awful.
Yeah, I really wish they had just stuck.
I really liked that CG one that they had before. That was good.
That was really good. Yeah, that was very good. Yeah, I don't know. If you're a fan of that show and you tell us we're wrong, I guess maybe we should give it a try.
Yeah,
but I did watch the pilot episode and I didn't like it.
Yeah, I haven't seen.
I didn't care for the. I mean, the voice actors are okay, I suppose. There's a couple of familiar faces, familiar voices, I should say. Because like at DuckTales, they have a couple of like name actors that are doing the voices, so they did get good voice actors. But I mean, the look is terrible.
The new DuckTales is great.
The new DuckTales is really good.
So I mean, I don't know. Anyway, we're not.
Disney really outdid themselves. They treated that with so much love. Even after the original Scrooge McDuck passed away, I like the new Scrooge. He's cool. But, I wish they would make a new DuckTales game with those assets and those characters.
That'd be great.
Really cool. It's just a different time. They just don't do that anymore, really. Yeah. But TMNT, the HYPERSTONE Heist, it wasn't a game that I was considering, but I'm kind of like, why didn't I consider it? So that's a good pull.
Foolishness. Very
foolish, especially for me. I love the Turtles. Okay, next game. Okay, I know I'm like loading up big time on the arcade games, but this is a game that's going to be on there. I'd bet anything. One of the great all-time great arcade ports and arcade games, Golden Axe.
Oh yeah, Mm-hmm.
And really, it's not a matter of whether or not Golden Axe will be on there, but how many Golden Axes?
Yeah, like is it 1, 2? There's 3, right?
There's 3. Yeah, and I think it'll be 1. Really, I don't think that there was like such a huge upgrade with 2 that you would justify it like you could with Streets of Rage 2. But I mean, I love Golden Axe, man. I think we've talked about it in the past, but it's just a classic beat 'em up. You got the warrior, the elf, and the Valkyrie. Yeah.
I'm trying to decide if I'm thinking a gauntlet or if that's really what they call it.
I mean, it was like a beat 'em up gauntlet, though, right?
It was, yeah.
I love you could get on like those giant birds or the dragons and like ride around on those. You could be real powerful for those for a little bit. And the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s was all about the beat 'em ups. Mm-hmm. So this is an absolute classic. Again, it's been on those Ages collections multiple times. I just don't think there's any way they're not going to put Golden Axe.
When you come up with your score of how many points you you got right or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's like Golden Axe 2 or 3, you can give yourself like a half a point.
Give myself a half a point?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Judge. Judge Nick.
Full point if
you are the prince
actually
of pixels after
Golden
all.
Axe.
Thank you. I'll take the half point. It could be the deciding factor. I don't know. I should try and gamble a little bit on the.
And so likewise, if there's like VECTORMAN 2, I get a half a point.
You get half a point, yeah. But it's gonna be VECTORMAN. I mean, it'll be weird if it's not VECTORMAN. Okay. Your next game, Nick. Anyway,
I got one that I don't really want to say that I think is the most likely to actually be there, but it's just not me.
A safe pick, you saying?
Yeah.
You haven't done a ton of safe picks, so if you want to do it, we may not talk anything. Talk about it at all. That might be a boring pick.
I'm gonna say Batman, the video game.
Ooh, that was the game you were talking about?
No, that just is what I'm saying right now.
Okay. Beautiful graphics.
Yeah.
Modeled after the '89 Batman.
Now it was Sunsoft on NES. Was it still Sunsoft for Genesis? I
feel like it was a Sega game. I don't know if they developed and published it or just published it, but that's a good question.
I know it had like that classic Sega box with like the black
and gray, white grids or whatever.
Yeah, the grid work.
Yeah, it's another one of the licensed game that Sega was, banking on to get people to buy the system. With Ghostbusters, with Batman, Spider-Man, all that stuff, they were all there, and in it, it looked and played and was just a little bit better version of. I mean, it was not the same game as the NES Batman, which I would argue is an absolute classic on the NES, but it was from the same source material, which was from the '89 movie. But if it was Sunsoft, I'm thinking it wasn't.
I'm thinking the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now, is that a game that you owned?
No.
Is that a game that you just
I just remember
didn't own it. Yeah, you just remember seeing it.
I just remember playing it and being impressed by it.
Yeah, I don't think I played it. I just remember seeing a lot of print ads for it and would see screenshots of it and review scores and stuff, and it was by all accounts a pretty good game. But Batman. We got other superheroes. Why not? Why not Batman? Okay, moving on to the next. I'm going to take a chance on this. And this isn't even a game that I've ever played, but it is a game that is, I think it has a bit of a cult following, and I think it was an arcade game too, but rare. But it's called Crackdown. Does that ring a bell?
Well, the name does, but not really for a Genesis game. So
well, there was a Crackdown property for Microsoft.
That's what I'm thinking
sandbox.
of. I don't know Crackdown on Genesis.
Yeah, I think Crackdown for Genesis was kind of this like multiplayer game where you kind of had your own objectives and your paths could cross, but you were actually on your own screens. So it looked kind of cool, and I've read a lot of people like that game, and it feels like it'd be a fan servicey type game. And if it does come out, I'll give it a try because I'm intrigued. But this is I'm taking a chance. I have other games here that I think actually could be more likely to be on there.
Okay.
But Crackdown is a game that I'm going to put on there because I have just a good feeling that it will be there.
So that's your throw Nick a bone.
That's my throw Nick a bone so he can catch up with me in the score. All right, Nick, what's your next?
This should have been on my list all along, and I forgot to write it down, and it just popped in my head.
Oh my God.
Jurassic Park.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you there. More movies to movie licenses, but again, another quality movie license game.
Yeah, but man, I mean, how long was this on the demo at Toys R Us?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, dude. It's like, Jesus Christ, put a new game in there.
Yeah, so I played a lot of this just because it was just always there.
The T-Rex looked really cool.
Looked great.
Yes, and I loved the all the visuals from Jurassic Park were there. The Jeeps.
It's another of those that was like, it's really, really hard.
Yep.
Very hard.
Yeah,
but
that reputation was being difficult, and I don't think I got very far into it. So I probably just played the demo like you. I didn't have it.
Yeah, you just keep playing first board over and over and over.
But it was cool, and it's a game that a lot of people have fond memories of.
Yeah.
So if we're going by that rule,
so if it's Jurassic Park Rampage Edition, I get a half a point.
Yeah, we'll give you that half point. Yeah, we don't know. We're assuming it's the original Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
but,
I'm going to say the original, but
I'd be shocked if they did.
There
put
was
any
Rampage
other
Edition.
Yeah, if they put anything else other than Jurassic Park. That's a property that I'm surprised there hasn't been a resurgence of Jurassic Park games because there is a resurgence in the movies. Yeah. So why not?
I mean, when you were mentioning the new DuckTales and like how there's no game. I mean, there used to be like whatever the property was, cartoon or whatever, there was always a game.
Yeah, and you loved them for better or for worse. But those Capcom Disney games,
and there was always like
good.
A movie would come out and there's whatever the movie, the game.
Yeah, LJN and Ocean. Yeah, a bunch of crap.
They don't do that anymore. I mean, like Cool World. I mean, on Super Nintendo, there was like that
it was
Cool
a given,
World
right?
game.
It was just a given. There was going to be a movie and a game, an accompanying game. Yeah, you're right. It was just a given.
Always did that.
Just to get Adam's Family.
Yeah,
it's just
family.
Their Wayne's World. And I was like, why is there a stinking Wayne's World game? Who gives a crap? It's so stupid.
Right.
This doesn't make any sense as a game, but here we are, Wayne's World. And it's probably an Ocean game or an LJN. You Bill and Ted.
I mean, I guess that's for the better. That that they don't do that as much anymore.
Are we reminiscing in a way that we want it to come back?
But
no.
Yeah, but there are times you think, well, why isn't there a game of the new DuckTales or whatever?
Capcom just the companies that were successful at it are just in a different place nowadays. Capcom is more interested in.
Who says Capcom even has Disney anymore?
They probably don't. Who has Disney? They have their own interactive companies too. Like Disney has their own studios.
Yeah, so why's it gotta be Capcom?
It doesn't have to be Capcom, but I just I know they did it well originally.
Yeah.
The old guy in me just wants to see Capcom do it again because I want to see a purple box and I want to see that Capcom just beautiful box. But Jurassic Park is a good choice. Moving on, sir. Sonic Spinball.
Yeah, I can really see that being there. More so than the Dr. Robotnik, which is already announced.
Yeah, if Dr. Robotnik is in the game confirmed, then why not put Sonic Spinball in there, which was probably a more successful game. I remember seeing it a lot, and it was fun.
Yeah.
It was a fun little game. They could just cram more Sonic. It was a guaranteed, hit. So And, I wouldn't mind playing some more Sonic Spinball. I don't think I own that either. It was just another one of those games that was constantly in somebody's demo.
Yeah.
But from what I played, I really enjoyed it. And I think, I know I said this with Crash and I was proven wrong. I think Sega is going to for sure stuff as much Sonic as they can in this little guy.
I'm not going to totally disagree, but I think there will be kind of cap it off. I don't really think they're going to do like Sonic and Knuckles.
Are we just going to go ahead and say that right now?
Yeah, I'm just going to say that right now. Because I don't think you're going to say it, and I'm not saying it.
I have my reasons, but I'd like to hear your reasons.
I just don't think... Now, I mean, they can prove me wrong, and that'd be great. But if you're going to include Sonic and Knuckles, you're going to have the lock-on technology. So you're going to expect to be able to play Sonic 3 with Knuckles, Sonic 2 with Knuckles. I don't even think Sonic 1 was compatible.
I think you're right.
But I just don't see them doing that.
Well, they can't physically do it because it doesn't play cartridges.
Well, but it could be done. Like they could have in like some kind of menu, like you can toggle like if there was like there is Sonic 2 on there. Mm-hmm. So if Sonic and Knuckles were to be on there, well, and that's the other thing too. If there was Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic and 3 would be a given. True. You would have to.
And I'm not even sure Sonic 3 will be on there, to be honest. I'll talk about that too.
But like, when you're selecting like Sonic 2, maybe there could be like, you push a button or push up or down or something, and it can be like with Knuckles. I don't know.
You think it's just more trouble than it's worth?
I don't know if it's more trouble than it's worth. I mean, are you saying that like my opinion or Sega's opinion?
Sega's opinion. Put yourself in Sega's shoes.
Maybe Sega's opinion.
If you had to do a little bit extra to make it work with other games, like, do you bother?
For Sega's opinion, then probably, yeah. I'm going to say it's more trouble than it's worth.
Okay.
In my opinion, I think, yeah, do it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm all for it.
But I don't...
It was a cool thing to do.
I just don't think they would.
And for those who don't know Sonic and Knuckles, like they introduced another character, and Knuckles could more or less appear in other Sonic games.
Yeah, and that was really neat to like, go play through Sonic 2 with now a totally new character. Yeah. I mean, it was like DLC when there was no such thing.
Yeah, good point.
So
and the Knuckles character didn't play like the other two characters exactly.
So like you buy this cartridge, it's like when you buy a DLC character to play in a game.
Yeah, it expands the life of the game. You have an excuse to dust off your old cartridges and have a little bit more fun.
I thought that was really neat. Really cool tech, but didn't really get utilized a whole lot. I always kind of wondered, why don't they do something like that for Street Fighter when you've got like the vanilla Street Fighter 2, have some lock-on technology and upgrade it to Champions Edition.
Oh, see, I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking like add extra characters. You're like, let's just upgrade the entire
I always
game.
thought they should do that.
Well, they do it like with arcades, right? They just give you, a new board or whatever, and you just upgrade it yourself. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I like that idea.
In fact, when I bought the Game Genie, I kind of considered that like the lock-on technology, and that like you could, we were always looking for that boss code.
Yeah, your little adolescent mind runs wild and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you think like
oh man, can I finally do Simon Belmont in that Ninja Turtles game?
And we just like randomly just do codes just to see what would happen.
That was exciting.
Like there was some kind of science to it or something.
Well, again, pre-internet world, there was nothing telling us that it couldn't happen.
Right.
So, I mean, it's the Game Genie. It seemed like this just incredible thing, and it was neat in a way.
And we came like close. Like there's a few. It just crashed the game. But like I remember a couple times
happening.
Like we would put in a code and we'd like start a game and like it play a 2-player game and like you'd see the boss and we're like, yeah, and we're like high five, and then the game just crashed.
Oh. But for a second we were like ready to like write up EGM or Nintendo Power. We're like, look what we
found the boss code.
We did it. Yes. All right, so I said Sonic Spinball. We got 4 more titles to go.
Okay, yeah, and I said not Sonic and Knuckles.
Not Sonic and Knuckles. What instead will you put on there?
Let me ask you this: Eternal Champions. I didn't really play that much. Did it play with 3 buttons, or did it utilize 6 buttons?
That's a good question. I think it was 3 buttons. I don't think it was 6 buttons, but I'm sure I'm guessing.
If that was a 3-button game.
Because when did the timeline? Okay, so it was a delayed game for the Sega CD, right? And so the Genesis had been out a good 3 years at least. What was the first 6-button game? Was it Street Fighter?
Oh, I'm going to say Street Fighter.
Okay, so that was what, 1992, 1993? Maybe even 4?
2 or 3. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so I'm just based on that timeline, I'm going to say that would have been a 3-button game. But I don't know. I don't know, like, if you had to do a combination of arrow keys and buttons to get different moves. Was it like a Smash Brothers game where you just didn't need 6 buttons traditionally? You just needed like an attack and a jump and a special or something? All right, so
the game followed the typical 8-way directional pad stick with 6-button layout common to most fighting games at the time.
Okay.
More commonly in the case of Street Fighter 2. So
that settles it right there.
I'm gonna say no to Eternal Champions.
Okay. But it would have scratched that fighting game.
But maybe
itch,
the
though,
Japanese
right?
version will.
Yeah, maybe the Japanese version will. Who knows?
Okay, so I'm gonna throw on another Disney game.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna say Quackshot starring Donald Duck.
It's another one of those iconic box, art thing. You'd see it. I don't know if I played that one, to be honest. But I love Donald Duck. Donald Duck was definitely one of my favorite Disney characters.
It was like Indiana Jones Donald Duck.
Yeah, he had the little fedora.
And a plunger gun.
And a whip, too. Didn't he have like a... No, he had a plunger gun. You're right.
Maybe just the plunger gun.
Okay. You said Indiana Jones. My brain just automatically drew a whip in his hand. Like, yeah, Indiana Jones. Yeah, you're right. It had the plunger gun. Quackshot. Now we are leaning quite a bit on Disney now.
Yeah, it's very Disney heavy.
It's Disney heavy.
I just don't see that truly happening, but whatever.
Yeah, all right. So Donald Duck Quackshot. I mean, I'm wondering. Okay, I'm not saying it won't be on there, but I don't think every game that we've said will be on there. We may have to make some concessions. Now, could it be this over TAZ-MANIA? Maybe, because it was one of those early Genesis games that was very recognizable to Genesis fans.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's on there anyway. Whether it is or isn't, it's officially down, and we'll score it when the time comes. All right. So for my next choice, I'm gonna go back to the arcade well, and I'm gonna choose Super Thunderblade. Another early Genesis title, fun arcade. The helicopter, it had the stick or whatever,
Yeah.
It had the real kind of scaly graphics that was kind of popular for its day.
Yeah.
And I remember it being fairly decent as a Genesis game. So if nothing else, it fits the profile of what Sega would put on their Mini. Super Thunderblade again is one of those games it's showed up on Aegis collections in the past. So, assuming that the Mini can handle it, which I don't see why it couldn't, there's a really good chance that Super Thunderblade will be on there. And if it does, I'll be happy, because I, for one, really enjoyed that in the arcades, and didn't play it on the Sega Genesis because it was before I actually had one. It was one of those first wave games. Mm-hmm. So I will go Super Thunderblade.
I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a stretch, but again, it's not super exciting either. Okay, we're down to our final picks.
So this is my last pick?
Yeah, it's your last pick.
Should I say my joke pick? Or should I just say one that might more likely be on there?
We'll get a little bit more mileage, I think, out of the joke pick. So, you could go with the joke pick. If you go with the joke pick, I'll probably...
give me free points?
Yeah. Yes, you'll get bonus points if this happens. Now, go ahead and say your joke pick.
Oh, I get bonus points for it? If it's actually on it, I get bonus points?
Yes, you get 2 points.
Sweet.
Because it's such a Hail Mary. It's the biggest Hail Mary, and really, I think, on this whole list, even more than Ghostbusters. But it would be amazingly cool if it is.
I'm gonna say Zero Wing.
Okay, Zero Wing. Why is that the joke? What's unique and special about Zero Wing?
Because all your base are belong to us.
All your base.
All your base are belong to us, unto us. All your base. All your base are belong to us. All your base. All your base are belong to us.
Yeah, that's that game that was like the poorly translated. We had our internet, early internet episode, and that came up, of course, because it was all over everybody's computer. And it's just one of those like true early sensations, like a viral video. Yeah. And it would be really funny. Now it is a Japan game, like a Japanese game. It was something you had to import. It could be a joke for the Mega Drive.
Was it not actually in the States?
I don't think so. So if you want to take it back, you can. But that one, though, it's a long shot, even more than what I was thinking, for sure. But it would be kind of cute if they put it on there. But I do believe it was a Genesis, like a Japanese game.
Yeah.
I think it was only available for the Mega Drive, so I don't think it'll even has a shot in hell.
It was out in Europe, but yeah. Oh, wait, no. It's North America. Williams published it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay, shut my mouth. All right, I'm sorry. So, yeah, Zero Wing, let's go with it. All your base belong to us.
1989, North America. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know any...
Oh, wait, that's arcade.
It was an arcade? Well, yeah, Williams was kind of like an arcade company.
So maybe not on the console, maybe not then. So, yeah, Japan and Europe.
If Zero Wing is on this, you will get 10 points.
Well, now that's not. I know it doesn't release in North America.
You want to take it away?
Might as well have said Wily Wars.
You want to change it? We could change it. I think there's a bit of a better chance for Wily Wars over Zero Wing.
All right, I want points.
You need points, you think? I don't know. Like, I feel like you might be gaining on me a little bit. You kind of took a shot with Quackshot, though. I think that was a gamble.
Yeah, that was a gamble.
It's a bit of a gamble.
Like, because I want to say Ristar too, but I know
that is another pretty safe bet.
I know nothing about that game, is why I'm so hesitant to say.
I've seen that box art.
It's just you see it all the time,
yeah.
like the advertisements.
Yes, you're right. But not a personal favorite of ours.
Yeah, like I literally know like nothing about it other than just seeing that happy star.
That star guy, yeah. That's all you need to know because it's the mascot. It was the day of mascots.
Yeah.
All right, so you got there are some other safer bets, I think, but yeah, you want points. We're gonna wipe Zero Wing off. It was funny. We got to mention it. We're having our cake and eating it too. That's what we call that.
There's so many too that are like sequels and stuff.
I know,
of like games we've already done. I mean, there's like Revenge of Shinobi.
Yeah, that was a big early one.
Golden Axe 2, Streets of Rage 1, Streets of Rage 3.
Yep.
Yep.
One of those are way more likely than
Phantasy Star 2.
Yeah. That's one that pops up in a lot of people's top 10 lists.
Kid Chameleon, Dynamite.
I had Kid Chameleon as a possibility.
Rocket Knight Adventure.
Oh yeah, that's another Konami game too. Forgot about Rocket Knight. A little what kind of? It was like a little dog or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, like
a dingo. Yeah. It was a bit of a dingo.
The dingo ate your baby.
It's like a dingo with the knight armor on over top. How could you? It's so adorable. Got to make a choice.
Is there a fantasy or do we have a time limit?
No, we don't have a time limit. I can edit this podcast. We can do whatever the hell we want. We can make time fly.
Is there a Fantasy Star that's on this thing?
I don't think so.
Then let's say Fantasy Star 2.
Yeah, I don't think Fantasy Star is on here. And Fantasy Star is their Final Fantasy, really.
Yeah, Fantasy Star 2.
Okay.
That's my final answer.
So, according to the previous rules, if it's like Fantasy Star 4, you will get half a point. because I think that's another that was a newer. I mean, obviously it was 4. I remember seeing that red border for the Phantasy Star 4. Phantasy Star 2, we've talked about in the past. We're not RPG guys, but I'm sure that game sold very well. It's like I said, it was their Final Fantasy.
How many times do I pick a game and apologize? I've never played it.
It's kind of our thing, but right? It's kind of what we do. Hey, we never played it, but we've read a lot about it.
I'm rooting for you, though.
Yeah, buddy, I'm rooting for Phantasy Star 2. Nick, Daddy needs points. Okay. All right. So since you're gonna go with that, I will go with. It would be a bitch if I took Rystar or Streets of Rage. I took one of those safe bet games. But no, I'm gonna go with.
You already took columns. You might as well.
No. Okay. Seriously, I'm gonna go with eSWAT. City Under Siege.
I don't even remember.
It was an arcade game.
Okay.
If you saw the box, you'd probably recognize it.
Okay.
It was another one of the earlier games, and it's been on an Aegis collection in the past. Not all of them. It's not a sure bet, but it has its fans. It was an arcade, which again fits the MO. And oh god, you know what? Can I take it back?
Sure.
Can I take it back, Judge Nick?
Yeah.
Let me take it back. I want to put this one on here instead. Dynamite Heady.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, that was the cartoony choice.
I will allow it.
Kind of like a mascot-y type game. And I again, I didn't play it. I'm apologizing for that, but I know it also has some fans. And we don't have a ton of mascot games on here.
Like half of these games, it's like I can picture the art.
Oh yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah. That all my nostalgia is from looking at the boxes from Toys R Us or video stores or what have you. But Dynamite Heady I think has a chance of getting on there. It's a little bit of a long shot, but not nearly as long as your shots.
Easy.
Yeah. Whatever, man. You called me out for cheating. Deservedly so. So that means we're leaving games like Rystar, Kid Chameleon.
Yeah, I mean, there's still so many.
Alex
good
Kidd,
ones
that's
to
a game.
choose from.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which I'm going to go ahead and get into that, why I think it probably won't be on the list.
Yeah, talk about that.
There was a lawsuit recently in the late 2000s where after Michael Jackson's death, there was a lot of little petty type lawsuits that kind of sprouted up, and one of those involved Sonic the Hedgehog 3 because, as some of you may or may not know, Michael Jackson was involved to compose some of the music from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I think that's actually pretty common knowledge.
Right.
And he did, but he wasn't happy with the results. Apparently, he thought it just sounded bad because the Genesis had a iffy chip on it or whatever, and it just wasn't up to his standards. So he wanted to disavow any kind of credit. He didn't want to have his name on it, and in the marketing, they never even mentioned Michael Jackson, even though it was one of those worst kept rumors that was out there. So I think because of the lawsuit, I don't think there's really any chance. I mean, they could work it out, but the Jackson family estates, they're trying to milk some more money out of the dude's name. So I for that reason and that reason alone, I don't think it'll be in there, but it ought to be on there.
Yeah.
Sonic 3 should be on there. But it's just it's when I try to come up with these lists, you think a little bit more analytically about it. You try to if you really want to win, and for that reason.
What are you saying? I don't want to win.
You went with your heart a few picks there. You can't deny it.
I did.
Now you may look. Do I have the best track record in these cases?
Winning isn't everything. Yeah, every single Crash Bandicoot game will be on the PlayStation Classic.
I have proven myself.
I feel it in my heart.
Yeah. Dude, I'm still shocked that there was not at least a couple.
What was it? 20 games? How many games were on the PlayStation Classic?
I think it was 20. I think.
And this is 40.
Yeah, this is 40.
So yeah, and I told you then, I was like, dude, there are only 20 games. You can't have every single Crash.
I know, but
and then they didn't even have one.
Not even one. Not a single damn Crash game, making me look terrible, Sony.
If it was 40
garbage
games,
$30 mini console.
I might have gone with you if there were 40 games, but I was like, dude, there are only 20 games.
I know. You were right. You were right. I mean, even you, like you said, were surprised there wasn't at least the first one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm very, very surprised.
And I had you guys convinced that I feel like I really talked you guys into the Crash kart racing game.
No. Yeah.
Well, I talked Martin into it at least.
He humored you.
Yeah, oh, come on, man. Don't tell me that. I thought I had a victory there. Let me tell you, like, later on as you was walking out the door. I didn't believe a word of that. You know as well as I do, this is not going to be a Crash Kart.
Yeah, you had 1, 2, 3 Crash Kart.
Yeah, I had four, not just 2, 3, but 4 Crash games. And so here with Sonic, we got like 4 Sonic games, really. I mean, you know.
Oh, you're counting Dr. Robotnik?
Of course. Yeah, he's in the Sonic universe. You got to count it as a Sonic type game. I mean, he wouldn't be around if it weren't Sonic. Yeah, it's a spinoff, but I think it counts. But yeah, you got the first couple Sonic games are already in the books. They've already confirmed it. And you know, I think we've made cases for the 3 and 4, or not 4. Sonic Knuckles is not 4, but you know what I mean. You know, there are good reasons why they won't be on the list. I hope they're both on there.
Yeah, prove us wrong.
Prove us wrong, Sega.
It'd be great.
You can take my Road Rash 2. Give me Sonic 3. I'll be okay with that. But yeah, those were some of the other games that didn't make it. Streets of Rage. Now, I do think Streets of Rage is going to be on there. Let me just say.
I do too. Yeah.
There's a really, really good chance that Revenge of Shinobi be on there as well.
Yeah,
that was
Streets
a pretty
of Rage and
game.
Revenge of Shinobi, very, very solid games.
Okay, so should we go ahead and recap our list, I guess? So here are the 20 other games. On the record, Nick said Bonanza Brothers, TAZ-MANIA, Ghostbusters, VECTORMAN, Wonder Boy and Monster World, TMNT the HYPERSTONE Heist, Batman, Jurassic Park, Donald Duck Quackshot, Phantasy Star 2. Now, when you say those together like that, it sounds like an okay list, actually.
No, I was impressed you didn't laugh at Ghostbusters.
I want it to happen too. Now, you did a little bit of a sell job once you jogged my memory.
You were thinking of the NES
No, you're
version.
right. I mean, your sell job was to make me remember. but when you said little chibi guys with the big heads, like it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that game. Okay, and so that was your list. My list included Aladdin, Spider-Man vs. Kingpin, Columns, Road Rash 2, Strider, Golden Axe, Crackdown, Sonic Spinball, Super Thunderblade, and Dynamite Headdy.
A lot of cartoony games.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad. I
mean, I think it fits Sega, especially the early days of Sega, which is probably where a lot of that nostalgia comes from anyway.
Yeah.
No sports games, really.
I was saving that for you, man.
I brought Road Rash 2, I guess.
That was all you.
I know. Well, I mean, I would have gladly put a Madden on there. Because if Sega Genesis was known for anything, it was Sonic and Madden games. Yeah. But, you know, who wants to play like a 30-year-old Madden game? You know, I didn't really see it happening. And, you know, nobody wants to. Wouldn't it be funny if James Buster Douglas boxing was on there? Like, it could. It could, just because it was one of those original, like, I remember the ads, the Genesis does.
Yeah.
What Nintendo don't. Like, and they would have, like, the actual athletes in the commercial.
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, would it be funny they had a Joe Montana game in there? Possibly. Probably not. Okay, Nick. So that's the end of our segment. I have a new segment idea I'd like to run by you and possibly do. Guess you'll be okay with that.
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
So I thought it would be fun. Like, I like to go out and find new podcasts to listen to whenever I can. Okay. I got a lot that I listen to regularly. And since I've been more active on Twitter, I've kind of made some friends with other people who are, you know, like us, you know, all trying to expand, having a good time. They're, you know, like a quality podcast, not like some crap one. Like, we're totally quality.
Oh, totally.
We're legit. But, you know, I have found a couple of worthy podcasts that I went ahead and subscribed to, and I'm listening to regularly, and I'll share a couple of those. I may, you know, one week I may just do one. I might do, in this case, I have two. But my first podcast that I'd like to give a shout out to is a show called the 10-ish Podcast. And the thing I love about the 10ish podcast, which by the way, they've been releasing shows every Wednesday pretty consistently, is their hook is they have a top 10 list. That what'll happen is like one guy will just come up with the list and he won't tell the other guy. Mm-hmm. And what he'll do is like he'll get him on the show and he'll say, okay, I want you to give me the top 10 highest grossing Star Wars movies. And then the guy will try to rank the highest grossing, Star Wars movies. Mm-hmm. They've done best-selling video game consoles, which is where I kind of found them. Mm-hmm. And they were like, guess the best-selling video game console. And I'm like, this is up in our wheelhouse, right? We kind of know these things. And, I was like, PlayStation 2. That's what it is. That's the, the best-selling. And, I would kind of start tweeting them, they'd retweet our responses and stuff. So I found them on that, but I just kept going back to them because they have really interesting topics. Mm. They did a most popular songs of the 90s according to Spotify, but not what was popular in the 90s, but what people actually listen to now.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah. So, you get a lot of hits in the 90s that are kind of played out. You don't listen to the Macarena ever.
Right.
So, and it's fun because they have a really good, they both are really funny. They play off each other really well. They're nice guys. And, they just keep surprising me. Most popular baby names of the 1800s. They really get good, interesting topics. So, check that out. You can find them, all over the podcast services. It's the 10ish. That's the number 10 ISH. And you can follow them on Twitter at 10ishpod. The other one that I'm gonna this is kind of like a not a payback, but I want to repay, I guess. There's a podcast called Q Plot Device, and they actually gave a shout out to our show. Yeah, because they do a similar thing where they want to raise awareness for other shows that they'd listen to and enjoy and want to share, which is a really nice thing to do. But yeah, Q Plot Device. I like their episodes. Well, by the way, they update multiple times a week.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're on it, dude. You look at the timeline, it's Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. It's holy crap. But unlike us, we'll have shows running up in the 2 hours and above. A lot of times, their episodes are a little bit shorter and a little more easy to digest, I guess. Mm-hmm. They're typically in 30, 45 minutes. And what it is it's three guys from what I can tell, and they're all really funny, nice, cool guys. They seem like cool guys like us, and they'll usually open with some news, kind of let you know what's going on. The most recent episode I listened to was, they were talking about the PlayStation 5 news, and they were talking about Netflix. They had some streaming shows they wanted, okay, She-Ra season 2 is coming out on Netflix. And they would kind of banter over these things, kind of bust each other's balls a little bit. But they're funny. I like them, and I look for that in a podcast. I kind of think that 3 is a real sweet spot for podcasts. You get 3 people to kind of banter around, get 3 different personalities and 3 different points of views.
Yeah.
So, but 2 is fine too. I really enjoy our format, and the 10ish podcast, they just have 2, and that's great. But I just really like listening to podcasts myself with 3. So, and they cover everything, and they'll do just entire episodes on movie reviews, and stuff like that. So check them out. You can find them on Twitter at Q Plot Device. So CUE Plot Device. Check them out. They're a pretty good show.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. And that brings us to the end. I do also want to give a special shout out to our friends Dave and Shane at Arcadeaholics. From our previous episode. They were really cool guys.
Yeah, I got some swag.
Yeah, they sent us they made good on their word. They said they were going to send us some things, and they sent us these really sweet coasters and some stickers, and we bought this. You're wearing the shirt right now. It's a pretty nice looking shirt. Yeah. And I sent an email out to the bar, what's the one that we still haven't been to yet, but it's supposed to be really good?
Rec Bar.
Yeah, I sent an email to Rec Bar, and I was, I feel like a dork, but I was like, hey, I was at the Louisville Arcade Expo, and I came across this really fun, arcade game from these guys. It's like a new game, and it's just made for arcades like yours, multiplayer. I sent them some links to their websites. I'm really advocating for them. You should buy this game. It's really fun. Here are other bars, they've decked out their entire room with Cosmotron's theme. They're legit too. We like those guys. We want to support those guys. And I'd like to see the game here.
I would too, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all we have for you this week. I've been your host, Ron Avis.
I'm Nick Wright.
See you next time.
See ya.